Do you see how solid this is? Look at how solid it is. Look at how solid it is. The wings didn't even move after that. You could beat a child to death with this thing and it'd be fine without a scratch. The world could end and explode into a million pieces and it'll still be there as a monument to the history of mankind. That's how freaking tough this thing is. Greetings, sirs and madams. I'm Seraphic Zero, and today we're looking at the Gundam Fixed Figuration Metal Composite Wing Gundam Snow White Prelude. Now, we have it inside my display case at the moment so we can get the best lighting. And normally I build model kits. I don't really buy figures, but I just had to have this thing. It is so... well, I think in terms of quality and features and just all of that, like, it's like 100%, like everything, just very, wow. I was very impressed by this figure. So we have it next to my high resolution Wing Zero. This is a model kit, and they're not quite on the same level, but I will be comparing these two in terms of design a lot. And before anyone even has to ask, these are my psychedelic turtles. I like turtles, sue me, so yeah, there you go. Okay, so when I first got this thing, I thought that the design looked a little blocky and busy, just with all the details and weird random stuff they have going on with the geometry. But right now, like, it has the armor expanded for the Zero system feature, and I think it looks a lot better, like, in this mode. For some reason, even though it's all puffed up, it looks less busy this way. I think it was definitely intended to be displayed in this manner. So one of the things that's very impressive about this is the paint and the finish on this. All the white parts that have this kind of ivory pearlescent white finish. There's actually really no white on this thing, but yeah, the finish on it is absolutely lovely. It's got these tans on it, and then light gray, and then gold and silver highlights. So some of the paint job is a little busy, like on here on the shoulder, but yeah, once you get used to it, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, so the parts that open up for Zero system, you have ears that you swap out. The shoulders, kind of the top and the side, they kind of expand at the same time. They're kind of linked. Okay, you have the top port of the torso that pulls out. You got the radiator fins on the side, and then this bottom armor piece comes out. The front skirt kind of opens to the side and pulls down. The side skirt does this huge expansion, like upwards. And the forearms, they're intended to like bend a little more than this, but I thought it looked too goofy, so I just kind of have it opened halfway. And let's see, and I'll have to turn the figure around, but yeah, the back of the legs, yeah, just two different places in the back of the legs. The figure can transform. I haven't transformed it. I'm generally not interested in like transformation gimmicks, but yeah, this thing can do it. And overall, I will say the main thing about this is it is built solid as hell. Like, I have never ever witnessed anything built so solid before in my life. And just the overall quality of the build is absolutely excellent. I don't have the original figure this is based off of. It's there's another Gundam Fixed Figuration Metal Composite, like basic Wing Zero, and I don't have that for comparison, and I wasn't particularly interested in that, probably because it was so expensive, and I kind of liked the design of the high resolution Wing Zero better. In comparison, this is really just the base Wing Zero design by Hajime Kotoki, and like over the years, I'm starting to feel like it's the body is kind of blocky, which is like, I don't think really meshes well with the rest of the design, and especially when the armor's not expanded, it does look pretty blocky to me, and that's sort of why I prefer the overhauled design of the high resolution Wing Zero. Just the geometry and the flow of the design makes more sense. But in terms of quality, the high resolution Wing Zero, while it looks great, it feels like a hand grenade. It feels very fragile, and while the polished finish on it is really interesting, I think I prefer like a kind of the ivory finish like on this much better. It just it feels much more natural for the design. So new to this Snow White Prelude design are these seraphim units. They're these 2 extra wings that are attached to the back of the skirt. And they look really cool. They have a lot of functionality in terms of, you know, attack and defense. I kind of have mixed feelings about them on the figure. Right now, I kind of have them in the transformation configuration. So I'll show them in more detail once I take this thing out of the display case. But yeah, they're attached to these 2 very nimble binders that have a lot of ways of articulating, but that kind of makes them a little flimsy to support all of this weight that's attached to them. Of course, they have these neue zwerg weapons attached to them. These blade-looking things are rifles, and they also attach onto the seraphim units here. So they do have support parts that you can attach to them, like in the transformation configuration, but this is pretty much the most solid way you can display them. But yeah, we'll take another look at them in a second. Alright, so here's the back of the Snow White Prelude. It actually looks very impressive from this angle. You can get a very good look at all the different wing binders it has. These wing binders right here, I kind of refer to them as the vernier binders. They're mainly for thrusting power, sort of like the super verniers on the tall geese, I believe. Yeah, I really am impressed by these parts in particular because they have so much depth to them. They look very three-dimensional. You can see that the way the binders connect to the backpack, it's pretty much the same as Kotoki's original design. And in comparison, I think the high resolution Wing Zero, it just went really radical with that design, made it look more wing-like, which I found to be much more interesting. But yeah, it's pretty much basic, but it is built very solid. Yeah, so you can see the back of the seraphim units here. You can see that they're basically just these 2 thin arms with all this crazy crap attached to it. So you can't see the support parts I have attached because they're on the underside. But yeah, you can see they're just flimsy arms with lots of points of articulation. And I'll show you all the different joints later on. But yeah, on the back, it doesn't have a lot of transformations features. Of course, the back skirt does not open up for the Wing Zeros, the Zero System stuff. But the back of the legs, it does have some like armor pieces that open up for ventilation. But yeah, this unit does look very impressive from this angle as well. So here's a look at it with the armor closed. And definitely when it's closed, you can see how the design's pretty blocky, a little busy, especially on the skirt here. Yeah, I don't know why that when the armor's open, it just looks more acceptable, but yeah, this is how it is. And since I don't have a tripod for my camera, I can't really bend this thing around like while it's on camera. But one of the main things I'd like to point out here is that while the kit itself, or the figure itself, is extremely durable and just very tough, one of the flimsiest things about it is actually the point at which it attaches to the action base, which is very disappointing because, you know, that's kind of like your center of balance for all of your posing, and that sort of needs to be the toughest part of your entire design. But for some reason on this kit, it's kind of the weakest part. It just comes off so easy. So the part that attaches to the action base is just this thing. It's essentially just a saddle with a peg, and the peg Just let's see if we can get this lighting proper, but yeah, it's just a peg that goes into the taint, I guess. And I guess yeah, it works well enough to keep the kit upright. Let's see if we can fit it back on there. Yeah. But I think they really should have made it more solid. They could have given it a longer peg, or maybe just 2 pegs, like front and back. And yeah, make all the jokes you want. It's just physics, okay? Like, that's how you keep something in place. Yeah, so that's something I'd want to improve. So I guess from here we can start looking at more specific features. Alright, so as you can see here, the skeleton is extremely solid. Some of the joints are actually a little too solid, makes it a little difficult to move around, especially in the legs, but I suppose that's by design because since the main fuselage is metal, it's got a lot of mass to it. It can actually stand under its own power without the action base here, and the arms have absolutely no problem holding up the rifles by themselves. And regardless of that, the figure does come with a lot of support parts, clear support parts here, which anchor the really, really long rifles to the arms in case you just wanted to have that extra support. And while I won't go into the details about the articulation of this figure, I find those parts of reviews to be very boring. One thing I will point out is the ab crunch on this figure is absolutely phenomenal. The way they engineered it just looks really fantastic. They have it so that this armor piece actually recesses into the rest of the abdominal, and it just it works really well, and it just looks like it just makes so much sense. So yeah, just good on them for designing it that way. It looks really fantastic. Alright, let's start looking at these wing binders. So these pieces I like to call the super vernier binders. I have them in the closed and open configurations. So yeah, I really like the volume and the depth on the parts here. Yeah, very three-dimensional. It does have this gigantic seam line right down the middle for everything. That's very common on Wing Zero figures. So yeah, nice in ways. Of course, the beam saber slot into the connecting arm right here. There is no rotating joint right here, so it's just in that fixed position. That's kind of a lost opportunity in my position, but yeah, the beam saber just like slides in and out vertically. I really wish they flipped forward, but they don't, because honestly, I would think a mobile suit would have a hard problem reaching that far back into its backpack. Okay, so this is the open configuration. You can lift up this top part, the bottom part folds down, and these 3 feathers, like in between, they can slide outward. Yeah, so pretty cool transformation. I would say this part, like, maybe it doesn't need it, but it could help it if it had like maybe a 2-toned white to it, maybe another color on there, but yeah, it works fine. The ivory finish looks really nice. Yeah, that's the super vernier binders. Really good. Alright, so here's the backpack with the shield binders. Do not try to take it apart. It does not come apart. So these arms on the binders are made of metal, so this is extremely solid. I actually didn't know that they slide up and down in the binder, and so I took this thing apart. So yeah, it does that. Okay, so let's take a look at these shield binders. I have them closed and open. Yeah, so I will say the finish on this part looks very, very lovely. Very smooth ivory finish. And yeah, I like that these indentations, they're highlighted with gold. That just looks so nice in contrast with the ivory. It's got these decals. Each feather is on a ball joint. So yeah, this side of the shield binder looks very nice. The underside is this crazy ass mess I can't even really describe. It looks very I'm not a fan of it. It looks very busy and a little bit gross. Yeah, no real organization or flow to it. But yeah, I think it's more for when the binders open. But yeah, that's what it looks like underneath. So I have no earthly idea why a wing would need to open in this way. Yeah, I've done basically an online essay of the Wing Zero's like wing binders before. They're basically for thrust vectoring, but I have really no idea why you would need a binder to open like this. To me, it doesn't look cool. It looks more like a severe injury to me. Like that, it looks like a wing has been mutilated, but that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, it opens in a lot of different ways. Yeah, this part splits up. This part splits back, has an under part that comes up. There's another part here that splits open. The main body of it splits into 3 different arms. Each one has a feather on it. And yeah, that weird cluster of feathers, like on the underside, that's kind of what makes the main body underneath right there. The underside looks like this. Yeah, so I guess on this side it looks a little bit cooler, but on the other side, yeah, I don't really get it. But yeah, it does all that crazy mess. So yeah, I really like the color and the finish on it. I really like the gold details. They did a good job with the decals. In terms of design, though, I do think I like the design of the high resolution Wing Zero's shield binders much more. But yeah, these are nice too. Alright, so here's a look at the Seraphim unit. As you can see, it's basically some spindly arms with a lot of crap attached to it. Yeah, so this middle piece right here is kind of like the center backpack part, and it's got 2 arms attached to, well, an arm attached to each side. So, yeah, let's just look at all the parts of articulation right here. So, yeah, it basically folds in half and then like connects to itself in a more solid configuration like this, and then it can unfold so that it can extend the wing units out a little further. In this configuration, it has a lot of different points of articulation. Like it can turn here, it can turn here. I think it can turn here, but it might not be able to do it. This part right here is actually where it folds. Okay, these pegs are where the neue zwerg rifles attach. Rifles, that's great. And these ball joints are actually where the wing units attach. So these 3 pieces are the support parts for the transformation of the Seraphim unit. Unfortunately, they only attach in a very particular configuration at particular angles for the transformation, so you can't use them at all times. So yeah, I think I might just leave in the transform configuration just so it stays solid. But yeah, kind of these units, they look cool. Like the overall result, like right here, looks cool. But I will say that it might be one of the weakest points of the figure, just because there's so many points of articulation that it's actually fairly difficult to get a symmetrical pose, especially when you have the arms extended like this. And then also I'll say that these pegs right here for attaching the wing units, so you can attach them to either side like that, and then like they can go to either side. And then you can attach the shield wing thing. But I think that these little arms that swivel, they're a little too short. Like kind of like they offer a lot of points of articulation, but not enough space to actually articulate. So yeah, that's kind of a problem in terms of posing. Pretty much every time you want to change what these wings are doing, you have to detach them, redo the pose on the arms, and then reattach them. You can't really move them around while they're still attached. It's not great for that reason. And so these are the three wing units. They look pretty cool. They're very reminiscent of the shield binders. They're just attached, of course, by these ball joints. They don't look too amazing underneath, but I guess generally you're not really supposed to look at it from that side. So I don't really know what they do, because I didn't read the novels or anything like that. I haven't really seen any drawings, so based on the stances, like from the box and the figure, I guess they're shields. And I don't know if they provide any thrusting abilities at all, but yeah. So they pretty much just sit stacked on top of each other. They can't articulate well because there's not a lot of space with all that stuff going on. And I will say that, yeah, obviously you're supposed to attach them, like this large piece stays on the inside and the small one is on the outside, but the figure really doesn't provide any specific instructions as to, like, what's the correct side you're supposed to attach them onto and what is the order. And the book essentially like has like a small footnote that says you can attach them in any order. But, you know, us being Gundam fans, we're very OCD. We want the actual, like, what is the correct way to do this? And as far as I can tell, there really isn't a correct way to do it, because it like, even in the manual, they're not connected in a consistent way throughout the entire book. It's like it gets flip-flopped all the time. And even when you do the transformation, you actually disconnect the arms and flip them around, like to the other side. So I guess, yeah, maybe this wasn't thought through very solidly, but yeah, it looks cool. It works well enough for whatever it's supposed to do. I would actually suggest that these arms be like made a little like thicker, like just larger, like more like the mobile suit's arms. Like, they shouldn't be so spindly if they have to support so much weight, especially since these neue rifles are so long. That's a lot of leverage you have to counterbalance, you know what I mean? So they should at least be bigger, or maybe they should have been cast in metal so that they can, you know, be a little more solid. But I can understand why they made them so thin and like out of plastic, so that it's lightweight and that the figure's not too back heavy. But yeah, these are basically the newest part of the figure, and they look really cool. I just wish they worked a little better. They're not awful by any means, but I do wish that they worked a little better. Alright, so here are the neue zwerg units. This means new dwarf. I'm just gonna call them that. It's a little easier for me to say. Sorry, I'm an American. I'm very uncultured. Okay, so these are beam rifles. The design is interesting, but I haven't really seen them in use, so I don't really know what the need for this long blade structure is for. I guess it just looks very feathery. Kind of reminds me of the fin funnels from the new Gundam. But yeah, the design is very interesting. It's very three-dimensional. And then I suppose this is the actual weapon part. It looks exactly like a beam saber handle, but it doesn't come out, and the beam saber effect parts do not fit into there. But yeah, I guess I can just assume that they're beam rifles. I'm guessing they're probably either very similar in power to a Virgo's beam cannon, or maybe as powerful as a Buster rifle. I'm not entirely sure. But so yeah, you can single use these as rifles. So they have a handle that swivels out. There's also a peg that attaches into other parts or equipment. The peg does snap into place, so make sure when you swivel it out, it does snap. And yeah, you can attach the neue zwerg units into different things. So this is a separate handle in case you just want to connect all the neue zwergs together. It's yeah, I guess the detail's nice. They even have some decals on it. These clear plastic parts are support parts, because when you do connect them all together, it does get very heavy. They're very long, so there's a lot of leverage you have to counterbalance. And when you just kind of have to slide them all into place the peg kind of fits in and then slides into the narrow part. Yeah, so I will say this looks very goofy to me. Like there's no way a weapon that looks like this is practical, but yeah, it looks pretty crazy. It's huge, and it looks very imbalanced, especially for use in one hand. And yeah, like it's very bulky. But yeah, that's what that looks like. I suppose it looks cool to somebody, but not to me. But yeah, that's how the neue do. You can also connect them onto the Buster rifles with these support parts right here. I don't have them fitted together at the moment. And you can also connect them into the shield using these support parts. You can see how they have the same slot like in there. I'm not particularly interested in putting the neue rifles into those other parts because it just looks very impractical, especially on the shield, because the shield only has one part of connection. But yeah, like individually, the rifles they look really cool, and they look nice when attached into the backpack. But I don't, as weapons, I'm not really too hot on these. But yeah, this is them. Alright, so here are the spare hands for the kit. You have a large variety. I'm very glad that they went with this style of manipulator instead, because honestly the version of the hands they have on most of the Gundam Wing Master Grade kits are awful and very weak. And obviously the theme of this figure is it's going to be solid as hell. And these hands are definitely much better at that. They hold on to the weapons very, very well. Very good posing. Very solid. The hands don't come apart at all. They just reconnect into this ball joint at the wrist. The only bad thing I'd say about them is the armor design on the back of the hand is a little plain. There really isn't any detail there at all, which is very surprising because the rest of the kit figure is just completely doused head to toe in detail. But one thing I really, really appreciate about the variety of hands is you actually have a set of hands that is molded in a handshake grip for use with the beam sabers. This is actually very important for proper swordsmanship. Normally you'd be holding your beam sabers like this in more of a hammer grip, which is very rare in swordsmanship. So yeah, I'm really glad that we have these included so that you can have proper like posing and reach for your beam saber stuff. As for the beam sabers themselves, the handles are extremely plain. The beam saber effect, the blade effect parts are okay. And yeah, I guess it's just not really a focus on a mobile suit that's kind of mostly about range firepower, but I will say that most of my fondest memories about the Wing Zero and all of its variants is that its beam saber fights are just freaking amazing. So that's a little disappointing for me, but yeah, that's just how it goes. Yeah, so the beam saber handles are very short and compact because they have to fit into the wing binders. But yeah, we have a nice variety of hands and they work well enough for posing. We do have some hands, or this is actually the rifle holding hand. Like so if you wanted to do a hammer grip for your sword, you can just put them there and it fits fine. These I think will only fit the beam saber and not really much else. They won't really work well for the rifle. Alright, so here's your first love, the twin Buster rifles. Yeah, and they got a lot going on with them, a little more than usual. So, apparently they can fold in the back. I don't really know why, because the manual doesn't even really point this out. And it actually doesn't even use that feature for the transformation. So, they can fold, but I still haven't really figured out why, because there really isn't an obvious storage position for it on the figure itself. But yeah, the handles flip out. You have the hand fitted on there. And Yeah, they look very good. They have a lot of detail on them. Just a single tone. They have some white decals on there. Some moving parts for combining them together. And I will say that, yeah, they're made very solid. They're actually very lightweight for their length. So holding it up isn't really a problem for the figure. Although they even include like these clear support parts for them. Already talked about that before. Yeah, let's go ahead and look at this put together. Alright, so here are the twin Buster rifles connected together. So this generally looks really nice. They fit well together. If you're having a little bit of trouble connecting them properly, they have several connection points. Try connecting it on the back part first and then work your way forwards. Of course, yeah, these side bits on the inside, they flip downward. So you can connect them at the bottom of this under piece. So yeah, together it looks good, and I was actually surprised to find that the rifle holding hands, they can both fit on at the same time while it's connected, which is very rare for a Wing Zero figure. So yeah, that's a bit unusual. So yeah, you can have both hands on there while you're doing the bunker busting pose. And yeah, the figure can do that pose as well. You have this special support part to support the Buster rifle with both hands. Yeah, so that's very good. One thing that troubled me a little bit is when you have the rifles connected together, it looks like yeah, something is crooked about one of the rifles. You can see how one's bent at a different angle than the other. I've tried bending it straight in comparison, but I think it just might be cast that way. So a little bit unfixable. So yeah, hopefully your figure does not do that. Something else that bothers me about it is that the rifles aren't parallel with each other while they're connected. They kind of come together at the point, which I guess to some people makes sense, but I'm a little, I'm very symmetry minded, so I wish the barrels were parallel instead. And I think it's actually supposed to be parallel because when you connect these support parts for the neue zwerg, like extra rifle bits, when you put those support parts on, it actually this bottom part actually aligns the rifle barrels to be parallel with each other. It makes them straight. So I think it's intended to be straight, but you know, while you're connected, just plain like this, they're going to be merging towards the muzzle right there. So, but generally, yeah, this looks great. It has a lot of detail, a lot of attention to the surface, where it's not just flat, very three-dimensional. And it's actually like surprisingly lightweight for its size and length, so that's always very good. Alright, so here's the shield. I'll say the shield is probably my favorite part of the kit. I know that's a very weird part to focus on, but a lot of times the shields on these Gundam figures are terrible and kind of an afterthought, but I thought this thing was pretty amazing. First of all, like the subtle color scheme is amazing, and I really like the panels and the part separation on this. It looks pretty fantastic, and this thing just has so many features hidden on it. I was just like, it was just blowing my mind. Like, how did they fit all of this onto like one piece of equipment? But let's go ahead and look at a bit of that. So notably, this thing doesn't have the pile driver nose that the Wing Zero is known for. So yeah, none of that. I was kind of surprised that was missing. It's probably because the shield, I think it's sort of based on the Wing Verka shield, so that's why that feature is missing. Yeah, I forgot to double check my other Wing Zero like kit to see if the shield is similar, but yeah. Alright, okay, on the back of this thing, sorry, like I don't have a stand for my camera, so it'll be hard to manipulate this. So yeah, you have a single peg right here. It pegs into the back of the arm. Unfortunately, the shield can't be held in a pistol grip, which would be better for dueling, but yeah, I guess they kind of I was going to use the word forgo, but you can't, I don't think I can grammar that properly. Yeah, so they kind of like just dropped that feature from the Wing Zero shields generally. Okay, and it's got a lot of parts down here. It's got this fin down here for aerofoil bullshit. It's got these fins that come out for the transformation. Yeah, so it's got those. And let's see. Yeah, it's actually got a secondary fin right here that comes down for like during the transformation. This is the part I was like, how the hell did they manage to fit that there? Yeah, so that exists too. Like I just couldn't believe it. So yeah, it's hard to fit that many moving parts on like just one thing. So that was very impressive for me. Let's see what else. Yeah, so this hooks onto the back of the arm. From what I can tell, it's very sturdy, like when it's on there. Let's see, this part you can connect onto the connecting arm, and this actually connects the shield into the backpack. And this is not for the Neo Bird mode. It's actually for one of the new stances that the Snow White uses. I forgot, was it Rondo or Anthem? I can't remember the difference between those two, but yeah, so that connects it to the backpack while you have all the Seraphim unit bullshit going on. Okay, and okay, this is a part that's just crazy to me. So this, like, you see this black part right here, and you remember on the Wing Verka, it had like this crazy ass weird looking thing on the back of the Buster Rifle to cover the head during the transformation. Well, they kind of took that and they hid it inside the shield. Yeah, it's right here. So I was just like, what the hell? How did they manage to do that? Yeah, so it connects right there and it spins around. Let's see if I can, get it to come out right here. Sorry, guys. Gotta do this one-handed. Okay, there. Yeah, so it comes out and it spins around, so yeah, it can cover the head during the transformation for Neo Bird mode. Yeah, so I was just very impressed by the engineering on that. Yeah, you can fit so many features on one thing. And of course, these pegs, they swing out, and they help to connect the twin Buster Rifles. I'll show that to you guys later. And they also connect these parts. And these are for connecting the neue zwerg, so they connect onto those two pegs right there. Yeah, I'm not too interested to connect the neue zwerg onto the shield because that just looks like a lot of weight for one arm to handle. But yeah, this shield has a million jillion features and transformation things going on with it. I was just extremely impressed with it. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at how this interacts with the Buster Rifles. So what we're looking at here are some support parts for the transformation. These things, they just they help connect the Buster Rifle and the shield together. So on the back of the Buster Rifles, you have this thing that adds an extra peg to the back side of the Buster Rifle. I think this is technically optional during the transformation because there's two different ways to connect the Buster Rifles, but essentially when you connect the support part, you get 2 points of connection for the Buster Rifle. It keeps it very solid, very aligned, and yeah, this is a support part for, it connects to the underneath side of the shield, so it gives you that extra anchor point. So yeah, instead of just having one peg per rifle, you get two. So that makes it very, very solid. And yeah, before I noted how the Buster Rifles can actually fold, and this instruction technically doesn't appear in the manual for the Snow White, but apparently I think this was how you transformed the rifles for the original kit. And I think I saw on somebody else's review, they had the rifles folded like this when they created the Neo Bird mode for the regular Wing Zero. So yeah, you can also do this for the Snow White. It has the capability, but I prefer to anchor the rifles to the shield with the two connection points. It's just much more solid. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so here we have the Buster rifles connected to the shield. I'll say I really appreciate how they handled this. It's just very solid, anchored very well. So yeah, you can see that the Buster rifles, they're connected on there very straight. They're very parallel, which is kind of rare for Wing Zero kits. And they're very solid because it has 2 different connection points. Like I'm basically being as violent as I can with this, and it is just not going anywhere. It's just on there. Absolutely, like, stupendous amount of sturdiness. So yeah, it even looks pretty cool underneath. So you can see I have the support part like connected to the bottom of the shield there, and then this extra support parts on the back of the Buster rifle. So you have 2 different connection points, and that just makes it superbly solid. A really good job they did with this. I really like it. Yeah, that's a problem that a lot of Wing Zero figures have, but they solved it here. Like, I really appreciate that. And yeah, so this definitely goes to show, like, their philosophy of this figure. They just wanted it to be as solid as possible. That kind of required that it was a parts former instead of a transformer. It's got all these support parts that help it stay together and not move around accidentally. But yeah, I think, yeah, it works really well. For anyone who wanted to see it here, the neue zwerg connected to the shield. I think this specific formation had its own name, but I don't know what they are. So yeah, this looks really goofy. And if you look carefully, the neue zwerg, they're actually running into each other, so they probably need a little more space than they have, but yeah, they're already using up a lot of space. Yeah, this is... it's very heavy, it's a little flimsy, and they are connected to those pegs that swing out. So you might run into a thing where it might accidentally swivel under its own weight. Sorry, I got my hand in front of the lens there. So yeah, so you might accidentally swivel the peg under the weight of the neue zwerg here. And yeah, so the connection point for the shield is on the back of the arms right there. And I will say that I am having a hell of a time trying to connect the shield onto the arms while I have all this bullcrap connected to it. So yeah, maybe mount the shield first and then put all that stuff on. Yeah, and then while you have the support part, that peg right there on the back of the skirt, that's where you can connect the shield, like during one of your other stances. But yeah, I guess this is a way to handle it. I'll probably never like pose my figure with this, but I suppose if you have the Buster rifle in the right arm, having these guns on the left arm would be a way to handle it. But yeah, this is yeah, they probably could have improved the engineering on this a little bit. And the last few features we have to talk about are the shoulder machine cannons on the Snow White. Yeah, so yeah, you have your 4-barreled machine gun, and this has been a point of contention on a lot of Wing Zero figures, and I suppose the Wing Verka as well. But yeah, they do a pretty good job. They can flip up without interfering with the ears, but they're just a front panel, so that's why it doesn't interfere. But yeah, I suppose I'd long for the day where the machine cannons actually completely flip 180 to expose themselves like they did in the TV show. I guess I've always thought that was the coolest thing, and because of these big magnificent ears, that will never be a reality. But yeah, maybe one day some design of the Wing Zero will be able to pull that off. Yeah, so there you have the Vulcans, or shoulder machine cannons. They're technically not Vulcans, but yeah, they're basically one of my favorite weapons on the Wing Zero. They use it really well, like during the shows, and I guess in the OVA as well. All right, so and the last few things we need to talk about on the actual figure. So for the Zero System transformation, the ears actually open up, and instead of transforming, it's just a part swap. So yeah, you have 2 different sets of ears, and I have the open ones on there. and it comes like default with these closed ones. And I would just like to point out that on the closed versions, they actually have the radiator fins on the inside. I was just very impressed that they had that detail on there. They really didn't have to do that, but they have it. So I was just impressed by the attention to detail on there. And the fact that they highlight this notch right there with gold is a very nice touch. Really, it matches the wings well. It looks pretty nice. And just as a nicety, this kit has a spare V-fin in case you fuck that up. And yeah, in case you break it or you lose it or something, you have a spare one in there. So that's... I'm not sure why that's not standard practice for model kits and figures, because yeah, that's pretty fragile. One last thing I'd like to note about the figure is the brightness of the search eye and the various lenses on the figure. So for some reason, this seems to be kind of a common problem of a lot of the Wing Zero figures lately, is that the search eyes look really dim. It's kind of the same thing going on the high resolution Wing Zero. But yeah, it's just it's not bright at all. It just doesn't come across very bright. I think they really should have done like maybe a mirrored sticker or something like that to make it brighter, or maybe even just paint it bright green. I think that might have worked a bit better. They kind of did a bit of a trick with the main camera on the head here. It's a clear plastic piece that goes all the way from the front and back. It kind of behaves like a fiber optic. It's kind of that same technology. Yeah, so the brightness you see in there is actually light coming in from the background. So yeah, that's a pretty cool way to handle it. But unfortunately, I don't think there's a really good way you can engineer that for a search eye. And it's kind of got a similar thing going on for the various other camera lenses on the kit, like the front of the shield here. Like, it's there, it's just sort of dim. So I wish they had brightened that stuff up a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of one of my few gripes about the figure. Alright, so here's the last thing we need to talk about. So these are the support arms that come with the figure. They interact with the stand in multiple different ways, and they're essentially there to help you support the weight of various kinds of posing you might need to do. You know, support the weight of the Buster rifle, like in some poses, or all the neue zwerg crap that you have connected to everything. And there are some stances you do with the seraphim unit where you actually have to use these to support the backpack. So yeah, they work okay. I suppose it's good that they're clear. They are very solid, but I do wish that they had more points of articulation, and I wish that they had more points of rotation. So pretty much the only way they can rotate is by rotating in these pegs, but the arm itself literally has no rotation. So it's actually very hard to position and pose this thing. And then also, yeah, I haven't measured this angle, but yeah, it's a little more sharp than 90 degrees. So yeah, it basically can just bend back and forth like this, and that's it. I really wish it had a 180 degree bend, so it could bend back onto itself. Like, I think that would have been a lot more productive than just this. But maybe they were just going for stability instead. But yeah, this thing, it does its job, but they're pretty stiff and they kind of lack in articulation. So I wish they were a little bit better. I suppose if I were more skilled, I could modify this thing to have more joints or parts of rotation. But yeah, that's just how it comes as it is in the figure. Yeah, so they can connect to various places in the support base. They have a specific part that they connect into, like in the actual stand part of the stand. You know, so they can connect in right there. And yeah, they're fairly difficult to pose, but yeah, they work okay. Alright, and lastly, I'll probably make everybody sad by doing this, but I don't think I'll be transforming this thing. I'm generally not interested in transformation mechanics. I'm interested in the mobile suits and not the airplanes. But yeah, from what I've seen in the manual and other people's reviews, this thing does a very good job of transformation. I mean, there's only so many ways you can fold a man into an airplane, but as far as I can tell, it's like the parts formation on this, it's extremely solid. It's gonna hold its pose for a long time. And one of the weird things about this figure is that it's got so many things on the backpack. It's got so many different wings and parts on the backpack that it can actually completely cover the main body of the mobile suit in its Neo Bird mode, so that it's not going to look like a man folded into an airplane, if you know what I mean. So yeah, like that's generally my thoughts on the Neo Bird mode. Yeah, it'd probably be very good, but I don't think I'm gonna take the 45 minutes it would probably take to transform the thing. Alright, so final thoughts on the Wing Gundam Snow White Prelude. I will say that this is it's just an absolutely impressive figure. I cannot believe how solidly it's built. There's just so much thought going behind the engineering of this thing. It just works so well. Like the main body, it's very solid, very well articulated, so much detail. Yeah, it moves very well. It's very solid. The body is actually very solid compared to all the weapons and the backpack, so that, weirdly enough, it actually doesn't have a lot of balance issues, which is a very rare thing to say for a Wing Zero kit. But yeah, there's not too many bad things I can say about this. They did a really good job with all the new experimental features. Overall, the figure is just extremely beautiful, like very good paint quality, finish quality. Lots of good details. Yeah, the engineering just works really well, and I'm just blown away by how many features are included, like in one figure. Yeah, so some bad points. Yeah, there are some points where maybe the paint needs to be sanded down a little bit. Like I don't know, they're mass producing this thing. There's not really so much you can do. There are some places where you have pretty bad seam lines, where you might want to fix them. Like they tend to be like on the back of the head and on the super vernier wings. They're kind of like hidden right now, so I can't really like zoom in on them. But yeah, so you got some seam lines on there. There are some joints where I wish they were a little bit tighter, but it's a figure, not a model kit, so I'm not really sure how I can take this thing apart and tighten that stuff. And yeah, my main gripe is that the connection with the stand right there is not very solid. I think of everything, that should have been the thing that was the strongest, but it's not. Yeah, even on camera, you can see that the figure isn't resting on that peg the right way. Like you shouldn't see that space in there, but you can. And yeah, so I really wish they had thought through that a little bit better. And then like the lenses, like the search eye, they're fairly dim, but you know, they're really, like, I don't think there are a lot of figures that do a good job with that. But yeah, outside of that, it doesn't have too many problems. There are some parts, like on the seraphim units, where they have some articulation issues, because the parts, they don't really give the wings enough space to move around and pose properly, so you kind of have to just detach and reattach them all the time. But yeah, otherwise, I think the figure is absolutely fantastic. Is it worth $280? As a person who hates spending money, I will hesitantly say yes. It's very difficult to get me to say something like that, but yes, it's worth $280. Do I wish it were $50 less? Yeah. And do I wish it were more available so that more people could enjoy this thing? Yes, I do. Like I wish they had done like a more common printing so more people can get their hands on this thing, and maybe they wouldn't have had to charge so much money for it. But I do understand why they priced it the way it did. It's got so much detail and engineering, and like just so much work went into this thing. I'm just very impressed. And I'm not really sure what kind of market it would have. Like, I'm not sure how many people will want to buy something like this. But yeah, I'm just very grateful that I have the ability to afford something like this, and it's very lovely. I would say I think it's the nicest figure I own. Like, just bar none, just absolutely fantastic. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for my thoughts on the Wing Gundam Snow White Prelude. So hopefully you enjoyed this review, and we'll see you next time.